This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Mem Ches. We're holding on the absolute top line of Mem Ches and Aleph, in which we're going to quote the next line of the Mishnah, the line that dealt with Kache Bar V'Sar Shel Yom Kippurim V'Chulu, that the Shechita is Batzafain. Says the Gemara, before we get there, once again, let's dedicate all the incredible learning, the inestimable Koyach HaTeirah, as a schosser for Shlema for Gabriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva B'Soich Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. Says the Gemara, let's start with the ordering of the Mishnah. Mechti Safain Be'oilok Sif. The necessity that the carbon be shachted Batzafain is written in the Torah by the Eilah. Therefore, asked the Gemara, Nisli Eilah Breisha. So why isn't the Eilah listed first in the Mishnah? Why does it first say Chatos and then say Eilah? Answers the Gemara, Chatos. Aidi Da'asi Midrasha. Since the Chatos comes from a drasha, Chaviv Alei, it is Chaviv. And this is a concept that we've seen many times. That which is Chaviv, that which is a drasha, we write first. Ask the Gemara, V'nisni chatos achitzoinis. Ask the Gemara, why don't we teach the chatos that is brought on the mizbeach achitzoin, which is the makar? Why do we start by the chatos hapenimi? Answers Gemara, Aidi de nechnas. The reason is that since the damon lefnai v'lefnim, since the chatos of Yom Kippur, the chatos that's brought lifnim, and the dam goes lifnai v'lifnim. Therefore, chaviv alei, that's chaviv to him as well. So says the Gemara, that's the order of chatas and olam in the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, let's source that which we learned in the Mishnah, the dinim in the Mishnah, that the shechita for kachim has to be batzafain, the din that the daman is batzafain. Says the Gemara, 5 lines down, where do you know that this din applies by a carbon Eilah? Answers the Gemara, says the pasuk, you shacht it on the safa inside of the mizbeach. Ashchan ben Soin, says the Gemara, we see from here the makar that a ben Soin, a sheep, a goat, is batzafain ben bakar min alan. Where do we know that bakar, that cattle, also has to go batzafain? Amar Cross says the pasuk, ve'im minat soin. And if the carbon is from the soin, ve'im, that actually vav comes to add on, vav maisev al inyan arishain. And that's where we know, V'lamed Elyoin Mitachtim, we learn the top drasha of the bakar from the bottom drasha of the tzoin. Says the Gemara, 1 second, this is a debatable point. Can an extra vav be a limud? So according to the Mandamar that says yes, that everything is good and dandy. But asks the Gemara 10 lines down, Mandamar ain't milamdin. What are you going to tell me? And what's the source? Titania, v'im nefesh. And if a person l'chayev al safek mi'ilois asham taloi, the extra vav comes to say that you're chayev. In the case of a safek of an asham taloi, you're chayev for mi'ilah. Divri Rabbi Akiva, chachamim baitrim. So says the Gemara, what's this machlekes Rabbi Akiva the chachamim? Is klape arvav mar savar Rav Akiva holds l'meidim. We do learn the elyon mitachtoinu mar savar in melimdin, whereas the chacham, no, we do not learn it out. So says the Gemara, l'chayra, we want our mishnah to fit with the shitas chachamim. Amar Papa, the kulei alma l'meidin. Everyone agrees, says Rav Papa, that we learn tachton me'elyoin, we darshan extra vav. By the time of the Rabbanan, that's of course the svar of the Rabbanan. Nemer, excuse me. V'hainu time of the Rabbanan. So what do the Rabbanan hold? The Rabbanan hold that what is another drasha? Never kan mitzvahs, never chatos chila mitzvahs. Malhalon davar shechayvin al zedene kares al sheras chatos. Avkan shechayvin al zedene kares. V'shigol chatos. It says the Gemara, the Chacham have a different mekar. Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva respond? What does he do with this gzeir shava? He says malhalon bekavua. Avkan kavua. Rabbi Akiva learns out from here is that it's a kavua, it's a set carbon. That's when it doesn't change based on one's cash flow. And Avkan, so to bayas, it's going to be a kavua lefuke. The Thomas Mikdash v'kadshav. This comes to exclude a Thomas Mikdash v'kadshav, the oil of Yeridu, which is a carbon that does vary. The oil of Yeridu v'Rabbanan, whereas Rabbanan argue and they say what? Ein gzeir shava lemechsa. You can't darshin a gzeir shava in part, and that's why it's either a full gzeir shava or it's not a gzeir shava at all. But ask the Gemara, Smakim in Amid, Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, ein gzeir shava lemechsa. You can't learn a gzeir shava in half. So how does Rabbi Akiva respond? Ein achanam. You're right, says Rabbi Akiva. So what's the machlekes? Welcome, if Rabbi Akiva is having nefesh kasev. Vav Moisev al Inin Rishon. Rabbanan Ami Yoksev in Nefesh. What do the Rabbanan respond? Lema Ba'akam Ifli. Amar Savar Hakish Adif. Amar Savar Gzir Shava Adif. That's the debate. Which is a stronger limud? Rav Akiva is going to say the Gzir Shava is stronger. The Hakish is going to be stronger. Whereas the Rabbanan are going to say the Gzir Shava is stronger. Responds the Gemara Lai. The Kuli Alma, everyone holds the Hektish Adif, everyone knows Hektish is more Chomer, says the Gemara. So what's the question? And the Chacham come along and they say that we do Darish Tachta Me'elyon. La'asham b'kesef shkalim mishalai taim asam b'kesef shkalim, excuse me. We do this by the asham and the kesef shkalim. Why? Shalai Taimerli Sikha Chamrami Vadai and what? Mavadai Chatos Bas Dankav Sikha Asham Bar Danka. You should be the same monetary value. That's where the Chacham hold. They hold Rabbi Akiva. What do they respond? 15 lines at the bottom. Asavara Minole Nafkale Me Vizai Sitayras Asham Tarachas Chol Hashamais teaches us in we want our Asham. One din for all Hashamais, and therefore it's going to have the same minimal value. Same thing by Asham Suffolk. Teinach says this works according to the opinion that says that we have to darshan up Tairas. Mandalesli Tairas, but according to the opinion that argues and says it's not a just at all, Meichel Gomer. Gomer be'ercha be'ercha. Teinach because be'ercha Asham Shivcha. Charufa, like, excuse me, the Tenech Leba Asham, Be'archa Asham. Shev Charufa, like Seve Be'archa Michael. Neymar says the Gemara, Kamar, Gael, we'll not one from the other, and we'll take it, there, we'll learn one from the other. Continues the Gemara, the two dots. Continues the Gemara, Chatos Minolan. From where do we know that a Chatos, which is the next din in the Mishnah, once we know that the din of an Oila being Batsafain, says the Gemara, what about other Karbanis? Debai Safan. Tersev says in the Torah, "V'shachar es achatas v'makam ayla." So the shachatas has to be where the ayla is. So once we know the ayla is b'safain, we now know about the chatos. Ashchan shchita kabbalah minala. Now you know kabbalah. Tersev l'kachan midam achatos mikabel atzmai. It says that he takes it. Kabel atzmai minalan. Where do we know that the makabel, the kain himself, he also has to be standing b'safain? Amar Kav Lakach says V'Lakach Loi Yikach Loi, to him the kohen should take himself, and that means he should be in the same place. Ashchan the mitzvah, says the Gemara. Now we see that it's a mitzvah, it's a positive. La'akev minayin. How do you know if you don't do this? It's ma'akev karach. Rinuksiv, says the Gemara. We have another pasuk. V'shachar b'makam asher yishchat es oila v'tanya. And we learned in our brayse echan oila nishchata. Where was the oila slaughtered? Batzafain. Avzeh. So to this, what's this? The subject of the pasuk v'shachat Batzafain is also in the north. Says the Gemara of Chimikana Talamed. Are you learning it out from here? As we turn over to Memchesim Beis. V'haloi Kvar Nemar, but the Torah already says B'Makoim, in the place Asher Tishchat Ha'ila Tishchat Ha'chat. The Torah already told us it's in the same place. Halama Yatza L'Kvay Le'Makim. So why did the Torah explicate it? Halama Yatza L'Kvay Le'Makim. That what? She'im Loi Shachta Batzavain. Puzzle. Meaning, we already know it should be there. That's in the proactive. Where do we know? Where do we know that if not, that if it's not Batzafoin, it's going to be a problem? Says the Gemara. That's this additional pasuk. You're telling me this is the reason why the Chatas is singled out. It says more, no, wait. Maybe it's limiting. Maybe the Torah is teaching us that Dafka, this needs Batzafoin and nothing else. Talmud Leimar, says the Gemara 6 lines down, so now we have the two Mekairos, that all Chatas should be in the north. Says the Gemara Ashkan Seir Nasi. We see it has to be in the north. When it comes to the seir of the nasi, meaning the chatos of the nasi, bein the mitzvah, bein la'akiv. So now we see that chatos, we have both of these mekayres teaching us that it's a mitzvah, and it is ma'akiv. Says the Gemara, b'shar chatois nami, all other chatois ashechan lemitzvah. Now we only have a mekar that you have to do it. It's a mitzvah, but la'akiv, in other words, you know it's also ma'akiv. Says the Gemara, dechsev v'kisva. Uksiv Seira, and equates the two of them. And that's how we know, step number 2, not only does the Ayla, now as well the Chatos, and even within the Chatos, not only is it a mitzvah, but it's as well Ma'akiv. Says the Gemara, Ela Oisai Lamali. The Torah says Oisai. When it talks about the Shechita Batzafain, it says, Oisai, it is Batzafain. So we want to know, what's the it? The it clearly is limiting something. Says the Gemara, we need it for the Brisa. Oisai Batzafain, ve'in Sayir Nachshain Batzafain. And the Sayir of Nachshain ben Aminadav, when the Nesiim brought the Karbanos, that did not have to be Banasain. Batzafain, excuse me. Betanya, and we learned in Abrais of Samach Yada El Rosh HaSoyer, the Nasi should lean the Samach Al Rosh HaSoyer, the head of the Soyer, the rabbis that comes to include Sir Nachshain Lesmicha Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer teaches Rabbi Shimon the rabbis Seirei Avodas Kachavim Lesmicha. So says the Gemara. So why do we need this? You know why? Because I would have had to have oil this Rabu Lismicha. It's Rabbi Nam Litzafin. Maybe the fact that there's an extra reboy. When it came to the carbon of the Nesiim, there was the extra reboy for the Smicha. So maybe there's also an extra reboy that has to be done. Batzafin. Kamash Malan. That it does not have to be. Maskiv la Ravina Vek Ravina, 1 second. This only works on Ichla Rav Yehuda. But Rav Yehuda is the one that holds that there's a din of smicha by the chatos, by the nesiim. But the Rav Shimon who argues Michael and Meimar, Amar leimar zucher bei the Rav Tevi le Ravina. 1 second, and even Rav Yehuda minicha l'mayis Rabbi. Whatever reason that chatos is included, it's included. Umay de lo yis Rabbi. So how do you know even according to Rav Yehuda? So maybe you're going to tell me, if we didn't have the miyat, I would have learned it out from a binyanav. If that's true, smicha gufa teisi binyanav, we can learn out smicha as well. And then it's not only the Rav Yehuda, it's Rav Shimon as well. Then it's even, you don't need the extra pasuk for smicha. Ella rather, says the Gemara, you know why Rav Yehuda has the pasuk? Mi dairais like garminan. We can't learn out from the din that it's lidairais because it's different than the one-time halacha. So says the Gemara, we're stuck. So even according to Rav Yehuda, what are you going to say Isai is needed for? Velas Isai batzafain. You know what I'm going to tell you? Isai is batzafain. Vein sheichet batzafain. And the one who does the shchita does not have to be batzafain. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Sheichet. The halacha of the shchita mid Ravachai nafka. The Tanya Ravachai Aimer. The original makar of shchita is what? V'shachat Isai 12 lines in the white line. Tal yerach hamizbeach. Safaina. Matam Aimer. Why did the Pasuk say that? Levisha Messino Aimer bat safain. Because we find that the kohen has to stand bat safain. Umekabel bat safain. V'mamir bat darin v'kibel bat safain. Puzzle. If he stands bat darin, it doesn't work. Yochlav zekain. So I would have thought the same thing is the din by the one doing the shchita. Tamalay mer Isai. No. Isai bat safain. Vein hashoichet bat safain. So what do we see that word Isai is needed for? It's needed to teach me. Excuse me. So we see that Isai is written by the chatas of the Nasi, and we don't need it for anything else. So we can't figure out why the Torah after V'shachat Isai. Ella says the Gemara Isai bat safain vein ben oif bat safain. The malika of the bird, which even though it's a form of shchita, that does not have to be bat safain. The Tanya Yachli ben oif to an safain v'denu ma ben sain shel kavaloi kayin. A kayin does not do that has to do the shchita by a sain yet. Kavaloi safain ben oif shekavaloi kayin. We know that it comes to a bird only a kayin's allowed to do the malika in a din. Shekvaloi safain tamla isai. Therefore, we need a pasuk of isai. Says the Gemara, wait, Malu ben Sayin Shekin Kavalei Kli. There's another differentiation. When it comes to a sign, you need to use a Kli. Whereas when it comes to Malika, it's used the thumb of the Kayin. So how can you learn out one for the other? Ella, rather, 2 lines in the white line says Gemara Seifa Vasafa and being Pesach Batsavin the 10 Rosh Ben Yaakov Aimer. Yachol, I would think Ye Pesach Tan Safon. And it's true. It should be logical that way. Oila doesn't have a zman, and yet kavalite fine. When it comes to the Karban Pesach, the Karban Pesach we know, of course, has a specific time that you have to shecht it. That the Pesach does not have to be bat safain. Ask the Gemara 1 second. But ma'la there's a difference. Shekin kolel, it's fully burnt up. Says the Gemara, mechatos. We can learn out from mechatos. But wait, malachad shkein mechaperes l'chayve krisos. Me asham. Malach shkein gajay gacham. Me kula nami. So says the Gemara, you're right. The kula nami shkein gajay gacham. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do we need this extra meat for? So finally, says the Gemara, Lailam, let's go back. We already know that he has to be batsafin from Ravachai. Lav lemuute shachain shoichet batsafin. It's not coming to exclude that the shoichet has to be batsafin. Now you're right. We learn that from Ravachai. Vela ein shoichet batsafin avol mekabel batsafin. You know what it's teaching me? See that the sheichet, you're right, doesn't have to be bat safain. But the mekabel, the one that catches the dam of the chatas, that one has to be bat safain. But says the Gemara 1 second. So you're telling me that it's the mekabel, the one that's doing Kabbalah, has to be bat safain. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Milakach, ask the Gemara. Mikabel, milakach, lakach, nafka. We have a different place to turn out the Mikabel. Says Gemara, no, lakach, loy mashmalei. That Joshua we don't have, and therefore that's going to be finally the miyot is what? That the sheichet is bat safain. Excuse me, that the ein sheichet bat safain, and rather it's only the Mikabel is bat safain. That's what the extra Isai in the pasuk is going to teach us. Stop over here. We'll continue with the Torah's requirement for the Oila being Bar Tzafa in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.